talking about like how other cops are violating people's civil rights. And I was like, I think so. Well, I saw it on Yahoo News, and it was like in the front.
Oh, dang. I didn't know I made it on Yahoo News.
Yeah, I know, dude. And
it was everywhere for a while.
So she was the one that kind of showed me at first, and I was like, wow. So I watched her video. I was like, 100%, man. And then I just kind of followed you through there. And then I was following Andy Stump's podcast forever.
Yeah.
And then you were on. I was like, oh, yeah, man, that's great.
Bro, that was such a blessing in disguise because, I mean, I'm actually going back out there in a week or two to record again. And because we both have a military background, we both love jiu-jitsu, like, we just vibed instantly. Mm-hmm. And it was a really cool opportunity for me to kind of share my story, who I am, but also in an environment that I was very comfortable with. The second I sat, it's funny because right before we started recording, I said, hold on, let's not talk about that. Let's wait until we push play. Yeah, Andy said that to me in his truck because within 2 minutes, we were like broing out.
I know.
And he's like, you know what? Just stop talking, man, because this is all good stuff.
Yeah. We're violating podcast protocol.
Yeah, exactly. But, and that's why I like to hit these blind. Like we met 3 minutes ago or whatever it was. And now we're just sitting down and recording. I like being able to just kind of learn about people in real time. Yeah. And that's what makes this fun and exciting. That method of choosing guests, like I said earlier, sometimes bites you in the ass, but more often than not, it's a authentic way of hearing people's stories because I get to learn it as the audience learns it. Yeah. Typically I don't do a bunch of stalk people's social medias or try and figure out what they're all about. Like, let's just learn what they're all about. Yeah. But the cool thing is funny. I just texted my wife. I said, hey, this dude's cool. We're already vibing.
Right on. Like, I appreciate that.
I feel it, man. and when you invite people to do the show that you don't really know, you just never know. Yeah. And sometimes you don't vibe with people, and it's not necessarily a good or bad thing. It's just is what it is, you know?
I get it.
And the second I shook your hand, I was like, oh, this dude's a real dude. And around here, that carries weight, you know? And so
I thought you were I thought you were kind of shitting on me. I was like, oh man, I haven't done jujitsu for a while because I had knee surgery. This year, the beginning of this year. So I'm just kind of on a hiatus, but I definitely want to get back,
bro. So. That is part of the jiu-jitsu journey, is that it comes with peaks and valleys, and it comes with injury. I have people come in here all the time, and they're like, hey, I'm a carpenter and I want to learn jiu-jitsu, but I'm afraid that I'll get hurt. And I'm like, don't be afraid that you'll get hurt. Know that you'll get hurt.
100%.
There's no way around that. You have to plan for that. And if you don't, and then guess what? When it happens, it's going to feel catastrophic. And it's like, no. This is part of the journey. And a lot of people might not admit that because it's probably not good for business. But out of all my black belts, I think I'm the only one. I shouldn't even say this out loud.
Better knock on wood.
Yeah. I'm the only one that hasn't had ACL or meniscus surgery.
Hey, you must be doing something right.
And my knees are a mess. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, most people that are in jiu-jitsu for a long period of time, they just go through seasons where they get injured. That's life, man.
I wish I could say that. Well, not wish, but jiu-jitsu. My knee injury wasn't from jiu-jitsu. It was from my former career.
Oh, well, that's good though.
So, yeah.
Because then you get some type of compensation or they
going through the process.
Yeah.
It's a long drawn out process, but yeah, I had knee surgery, still kind of trying to get healthy and get better. And I want to get back into it, but I think it's just not time. Yeah. It'll probably be maybe next year. I don't know.
Well, bro, we're both in our 40s. At this point, you have to listen to your intuition and you have to be smart, because the other side of not being smart is us being fucked up for the rest of our lives. Yeah.
Yeah. And then now, I'm retired. I have guaranteed income. It's not a lot. I can't live in a mansion and stuff. I live within my means. Yeah. Luckily, my wife, she works full time. She's got a great career. And she's kind of like the one that kind of spearheaded me retiring early, so I could be home with my family. Cause I think that was the biggest, contributor of everything that kind of I wouldn't say came crashing down, but, it was pretty dark times. Yeah. And it just wasn't worth it in the end. But yeah, so,
well, bro, you know what? Let's just dive in then. You know how I do the show. Introduce yourself, give a little bit of background. initially when you reached out, you talked about being a first responder and some of the things that you went through during that era, the COVID era, and then the years following that. And man, a lot of our audience are us.
Yeah.
And so when I hear people that have walked this path, I'm always more likely to be like, hey, come tell your story, because this is our circle of people, So yeah, just go ahead, man. We'll have fun with it.
So my name's Danny. I was a fireman for 20 years. Typically that's atypical for the profession. Typically it's a 30-year career plus. But at 20 years I had enough, and I was never home, and it took a big toll on my family, my marriage. But I was thankful that, I was able to retire, because not everybody had the same opportunity as me. But at the end of the day, I enjoyed what I did. I ran some crazy calls. I did some cool stuff. We'll probably get into, but yeah, now I'm just going on to the next chapter.
Were you, and you said you live outside of San Bernardino?
Yeah, now? I live in
is that where you worked as well?
So I worked in, so I'm going to leave my department out.
Okay.
But, I worked for one of the largest departments in, the Inland Empire.
Okay.
I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
And, I started in 2002 in a small desert town. Probably, I don't know, 40 miles away from where I'm living now.
Okay.
Just east. People pass it on their way to the river.
I was going to say, is it Indigo?
No, it's not that. Or Indio.
Not that. Yeah, no. Indio.
No, that's the Coachella Valley. I was north of that.
I think Indio, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I've done a few cross country trips where you're like, fuck, where's the next gas station at?
Yeah.
And there's been a couple times where I never completely ran out, but my Mustang, I remember I was in my Mustang. And it has the fuel countdown, and it was on 0.
Oh.
And it was on 0 for like a half an hour.
Maybe you had a tailwind.
Yeah. So, and I think I came into Indio is where I finally got gas.
Oh, wow. Yeah. It's like the last town as you're going to Scirocco Summit, I think, if you're heading east towards like Phoenix area or whatever.
So you grew up down there as well? Or?
No. So I was born originally in Montana.
Okay. And that's where the handshake comes from.
Yeah. So I was born in Montana. I lived up there for, I think, 3 years. And my parents said like I was the best thing that came out of Montana. Cause like we left, my parents were broke. My dad was a master mechanic of a, heavy equipment company. So he was gone most of the week. He'd work in like North Dakota, Montana, like
so he'd just be traveling around.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my mom, raised me, and then when we moved to Orange County, from there moved to the Inland Empire, like Riverside. That's kind of where I grew up. Went to high school out there, graduated high school.
That was still back in the day when people were moving to California.
Yeah. Oh yeah, now it's like everybody's moving out. It's crazy. Yeah.
What was it like growing up in Southern California? I mean, you're just a couple years younger than me, so it was 90s and 2000s.
Yeah. Great, man. I had a good childhood. I mean, there wasn't too much crime back then.
Yeah.
Definitely not as much traffic. It
was the 91. Still gives me nightmares to this day.
I try and stay off of it. Yeah. I hardly ever go down to Riverside anymore. I just kind of stay where I'm at. But it was good. It was back before we had like freaking cell phones and the internet. And like we would just go outside and play. We wouldn't come home until the street lights were on.
I don't think we fully appreciate how beneficial that was for our childhoods.
Oh yeah.
Because like, you're exactly right. Like it sounds like when you tell our kids that, it sounds like something from like the early 1900s, It's like, hey, there was no cell phones. So like the kids that were drug dealers, they had pagers.
Oh yeah.
And that was the extent of communication, right? If you had a pager, you were a drug dealer.
Did you ever have a pager for work?
I did when I was in 2nd Ranger Battalion.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because even then, bro, it was before cell phones.
Yeah.
And they had what were called Bravo notifications, where 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Ranger Battalion all take turns being on, like, I forget what the time was, but I think you had an hour to be ready to go.
Just in case somebody needs some,
right?
Yeah.
And fuck, it's been 20 years. So if guys are in and I'm fucking this up, I apologize. But I think the regimental standard was 18 hours time on target anywhere in the world.
Wow.
And so because of that, we always had to be ready, right? And the funny thing is the modern warfare, like there's no real need for an 18-hour time on target, like, capability, I would say. I mean, I've never seen or heard of it used. So that's what leads me to say that, right? Mm-hmm. Could you paint a picture where we needed that? Probably. So that's why they had us do that. But yeah, dude, man, I'm an Army Ranger with a pager. Like, you felt important, right? Yeah. Although we hated those things, because guess when they'd go off? 2 a.m. on fucking Saturday morning. We've been out drinking and partying, and they would test us all the time.
So like you'd have to, I assume, get up, go to the base and rally or whatever.
You have to be in formation within
and you're thinking, where are we going? And it's like, psych.
And it's funny too, because some of the Bravo notifications were literally like, all right, head count, everybody's here. Good job, guys. See you Monday morning, right? Just literal, like, checking in. Yeah. And if you don't make it, it's a fucking problem, man. But then other times it would, because part of being on Bravo notification is you have all of your gear ready to go. Okay. Right. So other times they do that same thing, and it would be a 5-day training op or something. And you'd be like jumping out of an airplane or a helicopter 2 hours later. That's and it's cool. Like, fuck, man, I was just in my girlfriend's apartment. Yeah. And it sounds cool, but then it starts to get exhausting too. But that's why rangering, all the stuff that we've done is a young man's game. Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine. I didn't serve in the military, but I've heard your stories and, everybody else's stories. And it's like, wow, man.
It's just a kind of a, I don't know, it's just a cool thing to do when you were young, Yeah,
if I could go back, I wish I could have done that, but I went somewhere else.
So yeah, when did you decide that the fire service was something that you wanted to move into?
It was high school.
Okay.
So when I was going to high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. My dad was a owner-operator truck. He owned his own trucking company. He did very well.
So he went from being a mechanic, and then when you guys moved,
he did everything. Like my dad was really good at reinventing himself, and
I love that, bro.
Yeah, like he was just a worker, man. Like he was strong. He was a freaking tough dude. I looked up to him. He was my best friend. But like I at the time, I didn't really have a good relationship with him.
Is that because he was a tough worker, dude?
He was tough. He was a tough guy. I mean, he was. He was more lenient towards me than my brothers. Like, I think my brothers had the brunt of it.
Were they older?
Yeah, they're half brothers.
Okay.
Same dad, different mom.
Got it.
And so my dad was like, you're not going to be a freaking truck driver or a mechanic. I don't want you to have to work for a living. And I was like, okay. So I was in high school. We had career day. There's a freaking fire engine that showed up, and I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. And, I just started talking to the guys, and they were like super nice, and they were like, hey dude, like check out our stuff. This is what we do. And they were kind of telling me what they were doing. And I was like, man, I think I could do that. But then at the time I was like, well, you guys deal with people that are fucked up. Like you guys see blood and shit. Like, man, I've never experienced that. Like, how am I going to act? Is that going to bug me? Because I know there's a lot of people that don't have the stomach for it. So
some people just pass out cold.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy, right? Yeah. But that's their body's almost defense mechanism.
Yeah. Yeah. So, one of the firemen, he was like, hey dude, like go to school, get your EMT. And so from there I kind of had like a good, direction to go in. So, I became an explorer for Riverside City. I was an explorer there for a couple of years, and I was like, man, I want to work here. And they are notorious for having a very hard probation. And
right.
And if people don't know what a probation is, it's like basically like the year of employment, your first year of employment. They have like certain benchmarks that you have to do as far as like training, and at the end of the day, it's like, is this guy, like, do we really want to be invested in him for 30 years?
Is this pre or post academy?
This is post.
Okay.
Typically, like, usually it's like to get to your like dream department to be a full-time fireman, you're going to have to be an EMT at least. That's bare minimum. You're going to have to get experience, go through the fire academy, get your basic level, fire academy, and then you start applying.
Oh, so
yeah.
And I'm not really familiar with how it works in Washington. I'm sure it's different.
Yeah,
in each state.
I have no idea either.
But I think you can go through the academy on your own dime, or departments can sponsor you through. Is that
so? It's not very typical. So
you're basically selling yourself then.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff that.
So is there I'm assuming there's a fairly high out of pocket cost.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense then. Why their probation can be so rigorous? Because I know a lot of departments, at least police departments up here, they sponsor you to the academy. They pay for you to go.
Yeah.
So now when you come back and you're on probation, if they just fire everybody, they're losing money doing that.
And especially like, well, the time that you invested, like, I mean, you can't get that back.
Yeah.
Like why would you want to set somebody up for failure? And I don't know.
It's a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
Because the pendulum swung so far these days that you got people that can't pass their PT test, they can't pass their qualifications, and they're still just like, well, we invested this much, so we need to keep them around. But the other side of that coin is, kind of like what Jocko talks about, no bad teams, only bad leaders, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people under the right leadership can excel.
Oh yeah.
And that's something that you're constantly having to balance,
Yeah. So the 2 years I was at Riverside, I found out I didn't want to work there. Like the place that we would meet, like our muster or whatever. And, every once in a while, and this is after school. Okay. So like Wednesday nights we would go to this training tower, and our advisor, who was a Riverside City guy, he would come out and, we would learn something about the fire service.
And you're what, 17, 18 at this time?
I was still in high school.
Okay.
So from there, we would, whatever, pull hose, climb the tower, do a bunch of stuff. But, we would go from like usually like 6 to 9. Well, like right around 9 o'clock, there'd be an engine coming in. And I was like, oh, that's the Riverside engine coming in. And it would be they're taking their probationary guy to just, train. And some of those times, like, wow, they're just beating them down. And they're very tough department to, get through probation. At least back in the day. I don't know about now. I assume that they're still holding up that standard.
Yeah. And again, like, is it necessarily a bad thing?
I don't know.
What was the culture like for the guys once they've been through that year of probation?
With my former department?
No. At Riverside when you were there. Kind of toxic still?
I wouldn't say so.
Okay.
But I didn't really have the insight at the time.
That's true. Yeah. You're a kid.
I did a couple of ride outs, and, I didn't know anything. Like nobody really, like I was just learning. So they were just like, some of them didn't really want me there. And then others that kind of like took me under their wing were like still on probation, and they were treated differently, but they were still like, they put out. So it wasn't necessarily like a bad thing.
Yeah. It's funny, man. I look back on going through shit like that as a young Ranger, and it's like, bro, we got fucking beat down, And as I look back on that now at 44 years old, it feels like, oh, there's probably some leadership failures going on there. To be treated like that wasn't building team cohesion, wasn't building capability. It was actually building resentment. But at the same time, is that necessary to kind of check young men and put them in their spot? And it's like, well, that's probably true as well.
I think it's a good, like, to have a good certain amount of both,
yes.
Within a healthy, level.
Yeah.
I guess.
And so like that was just part of a probation period, and then or not a probation period, but like an explorer program.
Yeah.
And then after that, you put yourself through the fire academy.
Eventually. Yeah. So, after that, I moved up to the desert, smaller desert, small town called Yucca Valley.
Mm-hmm.
They have a community college out there. I applied, started going, taking my general ed, and went to EMT school. So finished EMT school. While I was in EMT school, I met a guy. He He still worked for my department. Nice guy. I didn't know him in class. He didn't sit next to him, and he's like, "Hey, man, this department, they're hiring like paid call. Why don't you show up? It's this weekend." And I was like, "Really? Oh, hell yeah, man."
What does paid call mean? You go on calls, you're getting paid?
Yeah, so it's just you don't get paid unless you get paid per call.
Got it.
And then like if you at the time you could work up, say there was like a limited term or a seasonal that wanted the day off, and if they had a qualified PCF,
then you could backfill that.
Yeah. So,
okay, that's interesting.
Yeah,
because I know a lot of departments around here. Like there's a big portion of your, like the beginning of your career where you're just a volunteer status.
Yeah.
And that feels, that feels criminal.
I volunteered a lot of time.
Did you?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I mean, that's how the game's played.
Oh yeah.
So if you're not willing to do that, it's probably not going to work out for you. Right.
Yeah. But that's kind of where like I was able to cut my teeth and like learn fire station etiquette and like the ins and outs of the fire department.
Yeah.
And because, the Explorers, it didn't teach me that. I wasn't there long enough, but when I would show up to the station after I kind of got hired, they were tough on me.
Yeah. The one thing that I've noticed, cause now I'm to the age where my friends have kids that are becoming firefighters and, yeah, I know we're getting old, right?
Yeah.
But, one of my buddies, his son had to go through those like volunteer programs, and that's not really feasible in today's world unless you're able to live at home and still have like a family that supports you and whatnot. And if you have that, cool, right? Mm-hmm. But if you don't, if you have to make your own way and you're working part-time or something, I mean, I think a regular apartment these days is over $2,000 around here. And it's like your time, it's just becoming less and less feasible.
Yeah. It's definitely a struggle, but now, there's very few departments in my area that have like an entry program to where you can mold guys and teach them like the culture. Whereas like now you're hiring a guy that doesn't, like, he's never been in a fire station with like other dudes, other companies. So like they have a lot to learn, and especially like going through probation. Like I said, you have certain benchmarks as far as training to meet.
Wow.
And if you don't meet them, because you'll have like a 6 month and 11-month test. So if you don't pass your 6 month, you're done. They'll send, like, if you're whatever station you're assigned, they'll tell those guys that are on duty, hey, go out to lunch, and the chief and the guy that's getting let go, they go to the station, clean out his locker, and send him home, send him on his way.
So then, and just make sure that I'm getting all this. When you went through, you got to be part of the departments ahead of time doing that volunteer work, or that, as you put it, paid call work, and that's gone now, huh?
Yes. For the most part, there's like small communities that still have it, but
because bro, as you know, it doesn't matter if it's police, military, jiu-jitsu, firefighters, like understanding the culture is key.
Oh yeah.
It's probably, if not equally as important or more important than the actual technical skill set that the job requires. Like if you can't mesh with the team, good luck.
Yeah.
And so to be learning that after the academy, after getting hired, it makes sense why so many dudes are getting rolled out.
Yeah. And you have to have like a personality where, you don't let you can't be pissed off at everything. You kind of have to let things slide off because you're around different personalities.
Yeah.
Obviously you're not going to get along with all of them, but man, just like, I don't know, ignore it, like let it go.
Yeah.
But some people can't, and it gets frustrating, but. Yeah.
So how old were you when you put yourself through the academy?
I think I was 22.
Okay.
22. Went to Victor Valley Fire Academy and I was driving there. It's in Victorville.
Yep.
Different desert.
Oh, I know Victorville.
Okay.
We have I think we have a range. When I was with the feds, I think there's a firearm range out there. Because we used to go to Victorville for some reason. I can't really.
I know there's one outside of Adelano, like off of 395. I'm sure there's some in Victorville, maybe like at the penitentiary. I don't know.
Oh, that's probably what it is. The penitentiary. Yeah, I was a U.S. Marshal.
Yeah.
we did have various ranges out in the desert as well, though. So
that's cool.
And so how long was that?
I think it's think it was 12 or 13 weeks.
Okay.
Something like that. And it's just entry level. Like it's a community college, you know, so like there's not a high standard, but there is some standard. So I did that, passed it. And then, you know, a couple of years later, I kind of got promoted. I went from paid call to limited term. And it's a program that's been dissolved. They don't do limited term. And I think that's probably where I cut my teeth. You know, cause I'm treated as a full-time fireman and, you know, I'm definitely not getting paid as one. So, you know, it was nice to be around other people, learn different things from other people. And then, it really prepared me for, medic school.
Okay. So, and then medic school is like pretty difficult, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to go through it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, dude, talk about medic school.
Oh man. So I think I started in 2005, went to Crafton Hills. I was class 66. So basically it was about a year. You know, I was living at home at the time. So my parents helped me. Like, you know, I was still working as a limited term, but I was only working 1 day a week. And, it was way different than my schedule. My schedule was like I'll explain it to people, but they don't really understand. It's a modified Kelly, and we'll just leave it at that. Because like our schedules are so weird. Like I'll tell them, and they're like, "Man, that doesn't make any sense." But man, it sounds like you have a lot of days off. I'm like, "We do when we're not getting forced."
Yeah.
So yeah, I was going to medic school 3 days a week, and I was commuting from Yucca Valley.
Is everybody expected to get that qualification at
No.
some point?
I mean, back then it was like you're not getting a job unless you're a paramedic.
Okay.
But now it's different. It's not necessarily impossible to get hired as just a firefighter EMT, but there's a lot more people. You know, there's a bigger pool. Like if you're a medic, you can like at this point, if you have your fire academy, or not even have your fire academy, but just the paramedic cert, you can get hired anywhere. There's so many departments that are hiring right now. Whereas like when I got hired, it was a little bit more competitive and not a lot of people were hiring at the time. It was just a different time.
You know, you always hear people say, like, I think I've heard people be like, the difference of a EMT and a paramedic is you can push meds or IVs, stuff like that. Is there like a definitive difference in what the positions entail?
Yeah, it's like non-invasive versus invasive, you know? Like,
okay.
I think they've changed the scope of practice for like EMTs. I think they can push meds, but it's like
frowned upon.
Well, no. It's like it's basically like, I think they can push Narcan. There might be a couple others, but man, I haven't studied the protocols in a while. I've been retired for a while, but
so you're afraid of saying something that's inaccurate? He doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
So my wife, she's a paramedic, and I'll say she's the better paramedic out of us.
Yeah.
She was the class behind me.
You guys can run just typical IV fluids though, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So in our county, we carried like just normal saline.
Yeah. You ever done an IO stick?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Is that a normal practice in the paramedic field?
Yeah. It used like, for full arrest, it was like our first, way of like obtaining, IV access or, so we can push meds, but, yeah. So
for people that don't know what I'm talking about, it's interoscular. I think that's how you pronounce it, right?
Yeah, you're right.
And it sticks into the bone marrow of your sternum. And I'll never.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
No. So did you do that in the Army?
Yes.
Okay. So that's funny. Most of the, every once in a while we would get guys from, the Marine Corps base doing, EMT rideouts at our department. And they would tell us like, yeah, dude, like I had to get stuck in the chest with this IO. We don't use that IO.
Okay. Would you guys hit like the femur then?
Yeah. Distal tibia, and anterior femur.
So what you're telling me is the Army is making us do some outdated bullshit?
No. I'm sure it works better. It's just
I doubt it works better, dude. Well, maybe, but the Army's IO stick has like
it's got a bunch of different needles on it.
5 or 10 needles in a circle that punch into the sternum bone to lock it into place, and then a center one just punches through your sternum. And I remember we were in Baghdad, and our medic was talking about this. And here's the thing, like there's a lot of things that you will, like a nasal pharyngeal airway, typical IVs, like you'll have all that done to you as a ranger. Yeah. The IO was not something that was like a mandatory part of training.
Well, that's good.
But someone usually is going to volunteer, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so like we're in Baghdad and our medic was talking about it. And my buddy Joe's like, I'll take one. It's like, all right, cool. We get to do a live one then, right? And so he's talking through it and he punches his sternum and bro, blood just starts pouring down his chest. Like you're dumping a water bottle. I was like, what the fuck, dude? And he's like, hey, I think the IV bag ripped. Like it's all the shit's like running down my chest. Like, no, dude, you're fucking bleeding out right now. Wow. And then boom, and you can like hear it. Punch through the sternum. I'm like, I will not be taking one of those.
Long time ago, we used to have our older needles were just like now we use the Easy IO. It's basically like a drill, and you just put the needle on the end of the drill and you drill it in. It works great, you know. Whereas before, there's like a little something like you can put in your palm and you kind of twist it in. Yeah. So like that was a little bit more like, oh man, like I don't know, it just felt weird, you know.
No, bro, it's funny because like on one hand, this shit's kind of like, but once you do it enough, it's also just okay.
Yeah, you get callous.
Dude, it got to the point where, and not that you have to become callous to fucking punch each other with IVs, but that was like a Friday, Saturday night practice.
Yeah.
He'd come back from the bar all fucking drunk and people would be fucking sticking each other and then he'd fucking take a bag or two down and go to bed.
Yeah.
That's like the Ranger hangover cure. And when people hear that, they're like, what the fuck, dude? But when you teach a bunch of 18-year-olds how to do this stuff, that's what's going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny because I've actually thought about it. Like I don't drink. Well, I'm on a fucking 1.5 year hiatus from alcohol now.
Good for you, man.
But even before that, alcohol wasn't my thing.
Yeah.
I never had a problem with alcohol. But I remember there was a couple instances in the last few years, or they're probably like the precursor of why I wrote alcohol off. Just saying like, fuck, I wish I had access to an IV right now. You know?
Well, you got to have a friend as a paramedic.
There we go.
But now it's like everything's locked up. Like they have these...
yeah, isn't that weird?
Yeah, it's like they have these vending machines that just have all your stuff in there, and you have to have like a incident number to like be able to like, you know,
draw a bag of IV fluid.
Yeah, so dude, it's way different now. It's regulated, so there's not a lot of that anymore.
So can I buy IV fluid if I want to, or is it a controlled?
No, I think you can.
Okay.
I don't.
Maybe I'll just get a cabinet in here and we'll fucking have it all ready to go.
I'm sure there's nurses and stuff here. They wouldn't mind. Yeah.
We got, as you know, like Jiu-Jitsu Academy pretty much have a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, Sean Baker trains here and he's an orthorthopedic surgeon.
Dude.
You know?
Yeah.
Although he hurt his neck, he's been out for a long time, which stresses me out because he's, that dude's he's almost 60.
Yeah.
And like,
but he looks like a fucking problem.
And bro, he is, he is a problem.
Yeah.
Right. And it's funny because, not to go off on too much of a tangent, but when you're a gorilla like him with a rugby background, like he's a problem until he meets guys that can out technique his athleticism. And when your physicality can beat a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's a slower path to developing technique.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And I've fucking told him for years, like, bro, slow down. Right? Like, when he grabs you with a collar tie, it's basically like fucking wham. Which for me, I don't care. Bring it. But for some of the other people that just rivet planes at Boeing and it's like, dude, calm down, dude. So then, dude, you get picked up by these guys.
Yeah.
And is that where you ended up doing your full career then?
Yeah. That's what I knew. So like at the time when I was going through the process to get hired full time, there was no other place I wanted to work. You know, I knew the guys. I liked, you know, everything that was going on at the time. And
now we're talking what, 2005 or something?
I got hired full time 2007.
2007.
Yeah.
Okay.
So from there, I got sent up to Hesperia. Well, actually, before that, so I had to go through another fire academy, but this is called a tower. So I think our tower was 6 weeks, but you had like to get hired full time, you still needed a fire academy. Okay.
Okay.
So basically, like the tower, you're getting paid, but they're teaching.
So wait, the one that you paid to go through isn't recognized as a full...
It is, but typically departments, they'll put them through like a tower or a mini tower, and it's basically like, this is how we do things.
Got it. Okay.
And they don't want the people that like, well, this isn't how the way I taught you. No,
I see. So
from now on,
kind of agency specific type
100%. Yeah.
Okay, that's very common. And I mean, the Marshal Service does that.
Okay.
A lot of police departments will have like follow-on academy and whatnot. Because I mean, at the end of the day, you have to know your department's SOPs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I got off probation. Yeah. I mean, like probation for me wasn't that hard. Like, I didn't really know my crew that I was first assigned to. But I kind of got along, and at the, it was a big crew. There was 7 guys. And, I wasn't a problem. So I just kind of flew below the radar.
Well, and for
gray man.
I mean, for young guys, because a lot of young guys that want to be cops or soldiers or firefighters listen to this show. I get hit up by like 18, 19, 20-year-olds. What you just said is one of the most important takeaways of probably this entire show. And so it shouldn't be lost on people. Like when you show up to the team as the new guy, eyes open, mouth shut, be the hardest worker in the room, purposefully do all the bitch work. Hey, the garbage is full. I'm going to run that garbage out. Like I remember when I was a new guy in Ramadi, it's like, hey, I'm going to check the fluids in the car every morning and wipe down the windshields. A retired Delta Force Sergeant Major probably doesn't want to fucking get the Windex out and clean the windows when we got some young Rangers on the team. But instead of being asked to do those things,
take the
initiative. And man, when the older guys see the young guy that's taking the initiative, that gives you so much buy-in.
Oh yeah.
And like now if you're struggling a little bit with like some of your technical skills or whatever it is, but they know you're a go-to guy, that you're a hard worker and that they can count on you. That's the path to fucking really finding success, man. Yeah. And I'm assuming it's this exact same in the fire service.
100%. Yeah. Like typically like, you're going to work with guys that you don't know. So it's like, you're going to be cordial and friendly. But some people aren't going to, invest time because they're like, oh, you're just passing through or whatever. But, you do some of those things and, like, hey, you ever done a pre-trip or you want to know how to operate the pump? Come on, let me show you.
Yeah.
You ever put up the aerial, that kind of stuff. It'll go far, they don't like guys that just sit around and do nothing, be active.
Yeah. The guys that sit around and do nothing, or the guys that show up acting like they're ready to be everyone's best friend.
Yeah.
And it's bro, like we know you went through the academy and we know that you did what you did, but everybody else did that too.
Yeah.
So that's not impressive. And like we used to talk about that in the military. It's like, yeah, you just graduated Ranger School. Congratulations. So did everybody else here.
Yeah.
Like that's not the benchmark for being someone that's respected, You
still got to prove yourself every day.
Yeah, exactly. You got to prove yourself every single day. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm kind of out of the loop these days. I've been removed from policing for 4 years now. But from what I hear from guys that are still in is that these younger kids are showing up now that just don't really have really understanding of social skills. And people blame it on like the schools and the being on their tablets all the time, all that shit. And it's probably a combination of everything. But don't ever think like not learning how to socially interact with people and how to be, like I said, the guy that just shows up ready, motivated. Those are important skill sets to develop. And so for you young guys out there listening, like hone in on that and prioritize that. Eyes open, mouth shut. I was, when I was a young Ranger, I was working with a guy from DevGru. That's SEAL Team 6, man.
Okay.
And he showed up to work with our team. And this dude was, 20-something years in the SEAL teams. Oh. And
damn.
Yeah, like the dude was fucking in his line of work, very senior, right?
Yeah.
But when he showed up to do some work with our team, he walked up and he goes, "Hey, man, as far as I'm concerned, I'm the fucking new guy right now.
Wow.
My eyes are open.
Good for him.
My eyes are open. My mouth is shut. I just want to see how you guys do business."
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, that's fucking rad.
Yeah.
Right. And bro, this is like a scene out of a movie, dude, because like almost immediately after that, we got mortared and a fucking mortar shell hit our camp. and it fucking detonated like in between two of the trailers, and nobody got hurt at all except a piece of shrapnel. We called this guy Genghis because he was Asian. He called him, that was his call sign in the SEAL teams too. Cool. A piece of shrapnel got stuck into the sole of his boot. And that was the only piece of shrapnel that hit anybody. And it's like, wham! And fucking dust everywhere, and the base's sirens are going off. And we all get up, and he looks down at his boot, and he goes, so that's how it's going to be around here. But yeah, my point in bringing that up is, even if you're a senior guy, man, show up with that humility, and you'll instantly get buy-in from the team.
I think that's it's still out there, but it's a little rare. I think. Yeah. At least in the fire service, my perspective. So
when you and this is looking a little further down the road, but even, when you show up looking to move into a leadership position, like you're a new lieutenant, you're a new chief, or whatever your guys' rank structure are, that stuff still applies too.
Yeah.
Show up with some humility, lean on your senior leaders and be like, hey, how do you guys do this? How do you guys do that? Because how many times have you had a senior leader show up and it's like, we're going to fucking tear everything down and build it up from the foundation. They show up with the latest, greatest methods, you know, and then you instantly just push everybody away.
Yeah. Yeah. That goes on in the fire service for sure.
Did you end up moving into
a leadership position? I mean, I promoted, I made it to engineer, and that's what I retired as.
What does that entail?
So I'm the operator, driver operator. So I'm responsible for all the small engine equipment, any equipment, the fire truck, fire engine, generators, you name it. Just stuff like that. Not too much like leadership, but it's like in the fire service, like that's your go-to in between like the captain. So typically, our department, it was, firefighter, paramedic, the engineer, captain. And then from there it's BC, battalion chief.
Got it.
So like, the engineer is kind of just like, mom, like, hey, you could bounce some stuff off of your engineer before going to your captain. But, sometimes, these new guys, they just go straight to the top.
Bro, it's funny you say that. I've heard that a lot.
Yeah.
I've heard that a lot over the last couple of years. And it's both military and law enforcement. And now I'm hearing it from fire, is like the 20 something year old literally just goes up to the chief and is like, hey, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, dude, man, I would have got fucking murdered for doing that in regiment.
Oh yeah.
Like chain of command was really, really preached. And it's not just like, again, it's like everything else. There's two sides to it, but you can't have a functional organization if the people don't have buy-in on your junior leaders.
Yeah.
And not only is that something that needs to be occurring, but what was always preached to us is like, you handle shit at the lowest level. And the reason
same in the fire service.
The reason for that is whatever you have to assume, like whatever problems you're dealing with at the bottom, it gets compounded, and the people at the top are dealing with a lot more problems, right? Because they have more people under them. So in interest of making the organization run smoothly, we want to minimize the amount of problems that are going uphill and handle them at the lowest level. It's a very simple concept, but then people are like, nope, I'm going right. And I saw in the Marshal Service too, people go right to the chief, and it's like, what the fuck are you doing? And you know what step most people miss is going directly to that other deputy or directly to that other firefighter. Yeah. And be like, hey, bro, on that last call, I saw you do this, and can we talk about it?
Yeah.
Nobody does that anymore.
Not as much, but there's a lot of like in the fire service, they still preach like the chain of command, and there's organizations that like the top dog, he wants to know, like he wants your input. He wants to know what's going on. But like, obviously like he's not sorting gravel, he's moving boulders, he's looking at it at a different picture. And, to like go up to the top to have like a, something that could be solved, at the lowest level. It puts more shit on his plate that he doesn't need.
Well, and I mean, the episode that is coming out next week, which will be 1 week before this episode, was a senior leader in the FBI.
Oh, wow.
And he's saying that's happening in the FBI now too. But here's the problem is that if you have these junior people going all the way up to the director and the director doesn't say, get that shit off my desk. Well, now you're nurturing that type of behavior and other people are going to see, oh, I can go to the director. Okay. Well, then why, if you knew that you can, then more people are going to start doing it.
And I'll say that it's not everybody. Like there's a lot of good people, but there's still like that, bottom 10%, I would guess.
Yeah.
That are, that have these bad habits.
Well, and again, like if the bad habits aren't extinguished, that's just as much the leadership's fault.
Or they're not told.
That's what I'm saying. Like correct that fucking problem.
Oh yeah.
So do you have any experiences that fucking like stand out where you're like, oh fuck, I'm a firefighter now. Like this is gnarly.
Yeah, the job was fun. Like, to actually like fight fire and, or cut holes on the roof, like, vent.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is like, how like you reference when you're in high school is like, man, how am I going to handle when I'm seeing dead bodies and fucking pulling like the tragic side of it, like once you started experiencing that side of it, was that something that you were able to compartmentalize pretty good, or did you go through some tough times?
I don't think any of the calls that I ran that were gnarly, they don't stick. Like if I have to really go into like my filing cabinet of my mind and like try and pull them out, and I appreciate like how my mind works. It almost like shields me, from that kind of stuff.
How do you think you were able to do that?
Because I don't know.
So there wasn't any like,
because I don't have
conscious thought process. It was just kind of how you compartmentalized it.
I mean, at the time, like there was some tragic stuff that that I've experienced. Like, I watched 2 people burn alive, and like, at the time I was like, wow, this is gnarly. And like right now I'm like, it's like I can't really see it. Like I knew I was there, but I'm like, oh yeah, I can't remember.
Do you think that's like a defense mechanism?
I think so. Like I don't know. I guess I'm just lucky, but that's not the stuff from the fire service that haunts me. I think the thing that haunts me the most is like some of the people that treated me like shit. That's what like I remember the most.
Bro, isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
It's like, because I think about that too, man. Like watching kids die and things like that in Ramadi, it wasn't a problem at the time. And now as you become older, you become a parent, you become more, I just posted a video last week about not even wanting to cut a Christmas tree down anymore, right? Like, so we bought an alive Christmas tree this year. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, obviously as we get older, our perspectives shift, and I like that. That's a natural part of growing as a man. But I've also revisited some of those things in my head, and, you kind of have to just accept how I dealt with it at the time was how I had to deal with it at the time. It doesn't make you a good or a bad person. Like you can't be watching those people burn and just fall down and start crying.
Yeah.
Because I'm here to do something. I'm trying to bring a solution to the table. But I know a lot of guys in my line of work anyways that felt no emotions during it. It's like they just bottled it up. And then one day they just fucking exploded. So hopefully the explosion isn't coming for you.
I haven't exploded, and I'm probably the worst as far as like, like I have a part-time job now, and
what are you doing now?
I'm an instructor at a fire academy.
Okay.
Part-time.
Nice.
Yeah. So like,
bro, that's actually, I love hearing that, because there's something that always called to me after leaving the military, after leaving police work, like, I want to work with the next generation. And I found that through jiu-jitsu, right? But man, like you have 20 years of knowledge, and I bet being able to impart that on the young people is pretty fucking rewarding.
Yeah. And I've done one academy so far. They just graduated.
Okay. So you're just getting into this.
At first the fire service left a bad taste in my mouth, and I was done with it, man. I didn't want to do anything. And, I just kind of like, from the advice of my wife, she's like, why don't you give it a shot? Try it, And I was like, okay. And dude, I love it. It's
Yeah.
great. And even we have a good cadre. They're a bunch of great dudes. And the kids that are coming out, man, there's hope.
Yeah.
100%. There's hope. I see it.
Well, and bro, the truth of the situation is your influence is going to move the needle. Yeah. So that's why it's important.
Yeah. And I'm a gentle guy. I'm not a yeller and a screamer, man. You gotta really piss me off.
Well, dude, I have a theory on the yelling and the screaming because
I think it's the same theory I have.
It's such a common approach to leadership in the military.
Yeah.
And man, if you have to yell and like as a jiu-jitsu instructor, as a parent, as any leadership position, if I have to yell and scream at you, typically that means I've failed somewhere else. Yeah. Right? Because like those kids at your fire academy should have enough buy-in on who you are as a man that if you say, hey guys, sit down for a minute, there's something that we need to talk about. What you just did showed me that you're not taking what I'm telling you serious.
And that cuts deeper.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, right? Mm-hmm. And they're like, "Oh fuck, dude, we're not showing up for him like the way that he expects us to show up for him." And I've had leaders throughout my career that, man, like they don't have to raise their voice. They walk in the room and they express disappointment.
Oh yeah,
in you.
Yeah, that's worse.
Way worse, right? Yeah. So where did everything go wrong? Man, I think it was probably that our military fought multiple wars with a drafted military to where you had a bunch of people that didn't want to be there.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, you're going to Vietnam to fight a war that you don't want to be part of, that makes no sense. So fuck you, sit down, shut the fuck up, don't say a goddamn word. And it's like, just beating people into submission. Continue until
morale improves, man.
Yeah, that's right. And so it's like, what's a very natural progression out of the military is into first responders. Yeah. So you get all these guys moving into police work, firefighter work, and they grew up with sit down, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, they're not a problem. Like for the most part, the guys that we hire from the military, they're like locked and squared away. It's awesome.
But my point of that is like, I think there is a missed opportunity to lean into the other side of leadership a little more, because I mean, a perfect example is when I went through basic training, there was a handful of drill sergeants. I shouldn't say a handful. I would say the majority of drill sergeants were sit down, shut the fuck up, right? Mm. And then we had a handful that were like, hey, come over here, privates, sit down. Let's have a talk about this. I still remember those guys. So there's something to be said. Yeah, there's something to be said about getting buy-in from your men through showing them a little bit of respect. But again, like we talked about earlier, there's also a time for sit down and shut the fuck up, right?
100%.
You just need to be able to balance that. And I feel like a lot of organizations have struggled to find that balance, where when we were younger, it was 100% sit down, shut the fuck up. And now the pendulum swing where like everybody's feelings count. Yeah. And the optimal range is probably, I would guess, somewhere in the middle of that. Yeah. You know? So, dude, that's interesting how you feel like you've been able to compartmentalize 20 years of, I mean, how often would you say you're getting exposed to some type of violence or trauma or like seeing people in crisis?
I wouldn't say it's like every day, but at least once a tour. Like
what's a tour?
So like before I go on days off, like so I'd work, again, my schedule.
You call it a Kelly?
It was a Kelly. Now it's
I don't even know what you mean by that.
Now it's a different schedule. That's crazy.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm pretty proud of myself for remembering that.
So we would basically like work 2 days. It averages like 2 days a week. That's like our normal schedule where
but it's 48 hours.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. Well, it can be back to back, or you could have a day off in between. Okay. And then if you get forced in that day in between, you're working 3 days in a row.
Which is, if you're not getting much sleep, that's gnarly, dude.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's the thing that sucks is like, I think the thing that affected me the most, other than the people, is like the lack of sleep. I haven't started sleeping better since I mean, I sleep great now.
Do you really?
Oh, yeah.
What have you implemented to sleep better? Because, bro, I've been up since 2:45 today.
Well, I was too, but I was able to go back to sleep. I think it was just nerves for me. Like I'm in a different place and I've never been here before. It's beautiful. I don't know. Like, I think
Do
it's
you
just
have any
it's
routines?
just the stress. No.
Okay.
I mean, I exercise when I can. You know, I think it's just the stress. Like, I don't have to worry. Like, I'm not carrying the weight of all that. And it's funny because, like a couple years ago, I got hypertension. And I was like, man, I'm too young to freaking have high. And I was so pissed.
And you look like you're a fit human being.
I try to be. And so I was like really pissed. And my doctor's like, hey, dude, you need to start taking meds. And
like, fuck you, dude.
So I kept on saying that until he's like, hey, you got to start taking them. So I finally did. And then, you know, about a month after I retired and I was separated, I had to go to my doctor, and, you know, lo and behold,
it was gone.
It was fucking low. And I'm like, holy shit. And I'm,
hey, again, like, shocking. Who would have thought?
It's crazy
that having your veins filled with cortisol
Yeah.
all the time, having terrible sleep patterns is actually detrimental to your body.
Oh, it screws up your T too.
And bro, now it screws up your, yeah. I was like, T?
Yeah, testosterone. Yeah.
But dude, like, that's, they are now proving that shift work kills you.
Yeah.
You know, even like nurses that are working night shift, or cops or firefighters, like
the zombies, man.
Yeah, shift work is fucking detrimental to your health. And it's funny you say stress, because I felt like I had two things happen to me at the same time a couple months ago, where I had this big blow up with my family, and I'm out of that storm now, but still it's like I think about it, you know what I mean? And I ponder on it. And so, but I also cut out THC 100% from my life.
You mentioned that.
And bro, I was, as soon as I started using THC, it was like a fucking miracle, because for the first time, and as long as I can remember, I could sleep for 7 or 8 hours. And I was like, oh shit, this is, I found the fucking, the fucking keys to the kingdom. But what I found is I started liking it too much. And it's like, now I wasn't just using it to sleep. I was like, oh, let's take a puff here. Let's take a puff there. Yeah. And making me feel happy. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, I just determined it's probably time for a break. So I committed to a break. And then literally like 2 weeks later, I had this blow up with my family. And so it was like the perfect storm to where I'm and it was the stress of that incident with no longer having that THC that helped me relax throughout the night. And bro, it's been insomnia ever since. Oh, man. And so 2026 can't come soon enough.
Dang, man.
But it's funny, because when I was younger, I used to say to guys, like, if you can't sleep, it's because you're not tired. And then I've learned, that's probably my karma coming back to haunt me for telling guys that. Because bro, I'll be fucking exhausted and just stare at the fucking ceiling. It's like, what is going on?
I used to be like that too.
You know what? It's funny we're talking about this, because I talked to Jenny about it this morning, because I was like, man, I'm going to go record a podcast, and I've been up since before 3. And when we sit down to record, I can always like tap into energy. Like, it's not, I know that it's not going to be detrimental to the show, but as we were talking, it's like, how do I, if I'm going to be up, how do I be more productive? Do I read a book? Do I get up and stretch? Because it's easy to say those things, but when it's the middle of the night, the last thing you want to do is like get up and start doing something.
Or waking up your family.
Yeah. you know? And so it's like, I need to figure out what the right methods or the right protocols are to, if I'm going to be a fucking insomniac, there has to be some way out of this. You know, a lot of people will say too that like, oh, THC actually disrupts REM sleep. Have you heard that?
I've heard that. I don't know if that they say it, but
and bro, that might be like scientifically correct. But I tell you, bro, I was waking up feeling good. So maybe I'm not getting REM sleep, but the sleep I was getting seemed to work for me. So
how many hours are you averaging?
Yeah, I usually fall asleep about 11, and then I'm up at like 3.
Okay,
that's terrible.
Well, I mean, look at Jocko. Like he goes to bed at like 10 or 11, gets up at 4:30 every morning, takes a picture of his watch.
Fuck you, Jocko, because you get up and go right to working out. I get up and feel fucking exhausted.
If I get 6 hours, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Like that's good for me.
Well, bro, and have you ever listened to Matthew Walker?
I haven't.
He's a sleep specialist that Joe Rogan has on once in a while.
Oh, okay.
And he's talked about how your genetics determine what your optimal amount of sleep is. And there are guys that can do 4 hours, because what's happening while you sleep is your brain is literally like repairing itself.
Yeah.
You know, it's going through its restoration process. And we don't get to determine how long our brain's restoration process takes. It's dictated by our genetics. And so it's like, you got a guy like Jocko that can do that in 4 hours. And then some people require 8 hours.
Yeah. And
you have to find what your number is and then hone your schedule around that, you know? Bro, my body loves sleep. Like when I'm sleeping 7 or 8 hours a night, when I'm able to fully fall into sleep and relaxation, I'll sleep for 7 or 8 hours and feel fucking fantastic. When I do get these 4 or 5 hour nights, I feel off the next day. And it's also compounding. You know, like you can't get 4 hours of sleep 3 nights in a row and then try and catch up on the weekend. Like our brains don't work like that. And that's more stuff that Matt Walker talks about. And so, you know, and you probably did this too. When I was a deputy in Los Angeles, bro, burning the candle at both ends, right? Because I needed the feds, they fucking work you to the bone. We always say they're like the house in the casino, right? Yeah. They're going to get the hours out of you. And because you're on salary, you're not paid hourly. Like they get you, man.
So you don't get overtime?
No.
Oh my God.
So here's the interesting thing about the feds. The only time that overtime is authorized is if it is pre-scheduled.
Oh.
So like, hey, next weekend, I'm going to need you to work Saturday because there's a detail in town. Okay, you'll get overtime then. But if it's fucking any regular shift and they're like, hey, looks like we're staying a few hours late, 0 overtime, which feels criminal, right?
Yeah.
But they're the federal government, so, so they can do whatever they want.
No.
So, man, I would work tons of hours, and then I would also go to jiu-jitsu every night that I could. And I was getting no sleep, and I'd always be like, hey, I'm going to fucking try and catch up on the weekends.
Yeah.
And then years later, I heard that wasn't a feasible solution to that problem.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be at work for multiple days, and, you know, I'm not sleeping good at work. Like
yeah.
You know, obviously this is not my bed. I'm sharing it with other people. You know, not at the same time, obviously.
Yeah, it's like, hey, what's going on? What's going on out there?
But like, it's not the most comfortable, you know, you're in a different environment. And you know,
the bell's going to go off at any minute, right?
Like, yeah. So I always had that. I was
was your department a department where you could count on getting a few hours here or there, or like,
it depends on where you're at.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I know some guys that they're like, bro, when I'm on shift, there's 0 sleep, and they understand going in.
We have those places.
And then I have other buddies that are like, bro, I sleep better at my department than I do at home.
We have I mean, it's a wide variety of everything. My last assignment, I mean, it wasn't that busy, but it was busy enough to where we typically got up at least once or twice every night. And it's like hard to, you know, fall back asleep for me.
That's gnarly, bro.
Yeah. And especially when you're on multiple days and it's like, fuck, man.
Yeah. So at what point in your career then did you start to, because you've referenced it a couple times, but we haven't delved into it at all, where like you just start seeing shortcomings, problems in leadership, problems that you felt like were starting to impact you like emotionally or professionally?
I'd say maybe it started taking a toll on me. Like, I mean, I've been dealing with it for the most part of my whole career. You know, just the constant, like, you're never home for the most part. You're always working. You know, was
that being dictated by your department, or were you just one of those guys who wanted to get all the overtime? So it was
both, a little bit of both. Before, you know, obviously before I had kids, like, yeah, I'd work all the time. But you know, once I had a family and, you know, once my wife started working, it was impacting my family.
How often, we call it getting mandoed.
Yeah. It's the same thing.
How often would you guys get mandoed?
Oh, it changes, dude. For the most part, like, our schedule was like, you know, oh yeah, you're only working 10 days a month. No, like you're averaging at least 5 to 10, even more extra shifts a month.
Oh, so suddenly that's a substantial amount of.
You're working at least half the month, you know, and it could be self-inflicted or, you know, it could be forced. And we got
mandatory overtime. I've always thought, like, Also, that sounds illegal.
Oh yeah,
but they all do it.
Yeah, there's some guys that are looking into it right now because dude, I can't tell you how many people that I've seen go through divorces, like other coworkers and stuff. And like, I'm not gonna lie, like, man, me and my wife, we were pretty close to like separating, and I'm thankful that we were able to work it out, and you know, we're going strong. Everything's great ever since I've retired.
Bro, it puts a level of stress on the relationship, and break out your notepads and take notes if you're a first responder right now, because it puts a level of stress on the relationship that you are not aware of until you step away from it.
And then my kids, same thing. Like my kids, it impacted them a lot to where I was working so much. I would come home and my wife, she would purposefully not plan events. Like if, you know, it's my first day off and I'm actually coming home, it's a wash. Like I was so grumpy and so tired that I couldn't even put on a smile to go to like you know, a family or friend's, you know, birthday or what have you.
Yeah.
Like it just got to that point.
Were your mandatory shifts, how much notice were you given on those?
Oh, dude, it could be a month out. It could be within minutes.
Okay.
So like there were a few times where me and my family, we're not fortunate enough to have other family nearby. So it impacted us quite a bit. We have, you know, friends that can help out here and there. But you know, when I'm getting a phone call at like 7 a.m. and I'm supposed to be leaving in an hour, you know, hey, you're not going home. You're going here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy shit, man. So, you know, I call my wife, obviously she's got shit to do.
Yeah.
So she's like, well, what am I supposed to do? I got to go to work.
Yeah. What are we doing with the kids?
Say no. Well, I can't say no. Like, so.
Well, and let me say this too, because I think you, similarly to me, would be like, hey, you know, so-and-so just fucking crashed in a skiing accident and broke their leg, and we need someone to cover a shift. That's one thing, right?
Yes.
I'm a
100%.
team player. I got your guys' back. And even with your wife, listen, honey, this so-and-so got hurt or whatever the case may be. Being a team player is you're down with that kind of stuff because that's part of being a team player. And my last agency, the Port, they were good. Guys got mandatory, but they were good about letting you know ahead of time, right? With the Marshal Service, it would be like, it wouldn't be because someone got hurt or there's an emergency. It would always just be because they can't pull their fucking heads out of their ass. They can't manage their schedule. And if they give us too much of a heads up, they got to pay you overtime.
Oh.
That's where it really got dark.
That's messed up.
Because now if they say, oh, hey, this just came up, you got to do it, they don't have to pay you. And it's like, you motherfuckers. Because I remember telling my supervisor, I was like, listen, aside from the morality of telling me so I get paid or I don't get paid, I fucking take the train to work on a lot of days. Oh. And when you guys changed my shift last minute,
I couldn't imagine that.
Now my train schedule is fucked up. And I said, listen, I'm not upset about you telling me I have to work more. I just need to know, should I drive my car to work or should I take the train to work? Can you just tell me that?
Yeah.
But they couldn't, because if they told you that in advance, they'd have to pay you. Wow. So it was always this fucking like fuckery around that. And it sounds like similarly, like, bro, if you're telling me that I don't get to go to this event with my kids that's planned because you guys can't schedule shit, bro, that starts to build resentment.
100%. And that's what happened. And like, that's been the case my whole career. Like my second day on probation, I got forced. Go figure, you know? So, you know, just after early in my career, it wasn't that big of a deal. It didn't impact us. You know, it was actually, you know, me and my wife were pretty broke, and it kind of, you know, help us build a household.
Yep.
But then, you know, once I started having kids and my wife started her career, that's when I started.
Household dynamics are different.
Yeah.
Now.
And the crappy thing, like my department, you know, there's a lot of good guys. There about, I'd say maybe 10% of the workforce, they're not as good.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to shit on them too much. But like we were considered like a training department. Like guys would come get experience, and then they go to that dream department where you're not having these problems where you're getting forced all the time. But like right now, there's a lot of departments that are struggling to retain guys because some guys don't want to do the job anymore or what have you, or they can't get qualified candidates or what. But
if you were upset with how it was going since fairly early on, was there a reason why you didn't say, fuck it, I'm going to check out another department?
Couldn't afford it.
Because it would require a move and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, so like you're talking about moving agencies.
Yeah.
Okay. So, at the time I was like, man, I'm too old. I'm off probation. It's just like, there's no, what do you say? There's no threat. Like everything's good here. Like other than
you got stuck from comfort, bro.
Exactly.
And comfort will fucking kill you.
Yes, I know. So like,
but that's an interesting thing to think about because like on one hand, there are shortcomings within your department, but on the other hand, man, you're afraid to take that step towards something better too, right?
I think if I was younger and I didn't have kids, I probably would have.
Yeah. Bro, I tell you, man, a lot of first responders, and this is a message that I get told very often. A lot of first responders feel they're stuck in a bad position, but they're afraid to take that step out for those exact reasons, right? And bro, they're real reasons. You got kids, you got mouths to feed, you got mortgage payment, right? But the other side of that is, man, you can find yourself running in that hamster wheel for a long time too.
Yeah. There's one of my old fire chiefs, great guy. He had a famous quote: "Success lies right outside your comfort zone."
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that you're right, But yeah, I
think,
just stuck it out.
I think we are supposed to go through periods of where you feel like a lot of despair or a lot of anxiety or a lot of stress. And when you walk out of that phase, I think that's where like a phase of growth happens, but you have to walk out of that phase.
Yeah.
A lot of people get stuck in that phase and then it's fucking 20 years of anxiety,
Yep. That was me. Yeah.
I'm not trying to I'm not trying to throw stones, but I also think it's important to articulate that, like, hey, there was an aspect of this that when I look in the mirror, I have to say, fuck man,
yep.
I kind of got stuck here. Mm-hmm. Right. Because for people listening, how long do you want to be stuck for? Like you got to weigh those, hey,
what's it worth?
I got these mortgages and these mouths to feed. But the one thing that's important to think about, if you are constantly occupied by the stress of the job, I mean, you've already touched on it, that starts to become detrimental to your relationships at home.
Oh yeah.
And so now it's like, fuck, I'm staying stuck here to provide, but I'm actually becoming a worse provider.
Oh yeah.
And that's a fucking spiral, bro.
Yeah. So it got to a point to where I had compassion fatigue. Like I didn't give a fuck about like the people that we were going on. Like obviously
I never heard that phrase before.
Yeah. So obviously like I was a good employee, I'm like, people would call us for a plethora of things. Sometimes we're not really needed. Other times we are,
Bro, I have buddies that get called. There was one lady that would call them on a daily basis to take a shit.
Yeah, we have those.
Because she was too fat to get from her couch to her bathroom.
Yeah.
I could get compassion fatigue for that after about 3 times,
So I think the way I got compassion fatigue is just, just being at work all the time and not having not being able to offload all that stress and like, oh man, like I can see my family, I can see my kids, I was losing that.
And pour back into you a little bit.
Yeah. So
do you think, because again, like if you show up to every call feeling the emotions and like the humanity behind it, like, oh man, this woman's kid is injured, like that's serious. That's something that comes with a lot of emotions, right? You can't feel that or allow that to have a front row seat at your table when you're there to do a job. Yeah. But the other side, if you just you just show up and you're like, oh fuck dude, here we go again, and you completely remove the humanity out of it, that's also dark.
I didn't get to that point. My compassion fatigue is I just didn't care. Like obviously the county my department was paying me to be there, and I'm a good employee. I don't want to get written up. Like
That's what I was going to ask. Did it ever impact the quality of your work?
No, I don't think so. Like, I mean, to a point it did, but like the public, absolutely not.
Okay, that's what I mean. The quality of your care, I would say.
The thing that it did impact is like I wasn't improving my craft. Like the last couple of years, like our crew, we just kind of took care of each other. We weren't out training. We weren't, we should have been, honing our skills, doing, the stuff to be on top, and we weren't. Like, and it wasn't, and I'm not throwing stones to, my bosses. My bosses were great. They were taking care of us, because it's like you're there for however many days straight. Like the last thing I want to do is go train, like I'm just trying to survive, man. Like I'm tired. I don't feel good. Like I'm going to have to run a shit ton of calls. Like just leave me alone. That's how we were,
bro. And I don't know what the right answer is on that, because we would have to do a lot of training mixed in as well. A lot of it was online training too. Did you guys have just bucket loads of online training? And so every single shift you'd have to log in and go through like a handful of PowerPoints, and they were just mundane. And again, you could just click through them as fast as you can. And then they found out that everybody was doing that. So now they have timers on each window.
Same. Yep.
And it's like, I remember thinking like, how about we fucking have specific days allocated for training, and then specific days that are allocated for being police officers. And the department would do that to a certain extent. Like if you're going to do firearms training or something more serious, that's going to be a day allocated to training. But just like you said, man, when you're running busy shifts, the last thing you want to do is fucking training.
Yeah. We stopped doing it. And then, I think the thing that really, at this point in my career, retirement really wasn't, on the horizon. Like I had, 10 more years to go. So I was
what was the policy on retirement? How many years did they?
So I think you have to have at least 20.
Okay.
So like there were many guys before me that retired early. I'm not sure if they had, like, the retirement system in California is different. Like they have two different types where like you can retire at 50 or you can retire at 57. It's just how they calculate your highest year and what your pension's going to be.
Bro, those highest years, those are fucking gnarly. Guys trying to get their top whatever.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they made it pretty hard now. Like it's kind of, I mean, there's benchmarks and stuff that they put in place that you can't really do it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well,
there's things that
people and for people to know what we're talking about, up here it used to be certain agencies had their top 3, right? So they would take that chunk of 3 years of your career that was your top earning 3 years, and then your retirement would be based around that. So when people would try and get their top earning, of course, what are they going to do? They're going to work as much overtime as they can for a 3-year period of time. Bro, now there's agencies that are doing top 5.
Yeah, I think California's doing 5.
And it's like, dude, you're going to try and fucking hammer overtime for 5 years straight.
Yeah.
Let me know how that works out for you. So what started making you look, these things that started to just become incongruent with your family's needs, that's when you start saying, I think I'm done?
I almost lost my kid.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Tell me about that, bro.
My son got to a point to where he was in a dark place. And
how old was he at the time?
11.
Okay.
11, right around there.
Fuck, bro. I see you tearing up, dude.
Yeah, sorry.
No, don't say sorry. Don't say emotional. Fuck, bro, fucking cry your eyes out with me, man.
Yeah. Not a lot of people know that, though.
I've shed a lot of tears in the last couple of years learning how to, like, process heavy shit, dude.
Yeah.
But to hear that an 11-year-old is in a dark place, man, we didn't feel that at 11. We were little boys.
No, man. Yeah. So it put a lot of things in perspective, and thank God, he's fine. Like he'll be fine.
Okay. Do you not feel comfortable going into it any further?
Just out of his respect and stuff, I want to give him his privacy. But so that happened.
Obviously his darkness accumulated to a point where he almost lost his life.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, as parents, that's our literal number one fear.
Yeah.
So that was literally like a kick to the fucking, hey, wake up, motherfucker.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So
what year was that?
2022,
okay.
I think, right around there. Yeah. So
and how many kids do you have again?
I have 2. Yeah.
And he's the oldest?
Yeah. He's 13. Yeah. My John. So,
yeah.
So at this point, like, I needed some time off. So, at the time, my chief, my battalion chief, he was good. I was able to get FMLA, and, I didn't tell anybody anything. I kept it pretty, tight. Like my crew didn't even know, they just knew, oh, Danny's off. Like, oh, he's off for a month. And I'm glad, like, I couldn't go to work. I was, of course, I had shit on my head. Like, I couldn't function, I needed time off. So, from there, like, after that, there's a lot of, healing and, taking my son to, places and getting him help. So, he can get better, So, in order to do so, I needed time off. So that was really difficult with my, my department.
Were these things that you would just take him to, or things that you would, experience with him?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, both. So I was able to get FMLA, and, it wasn't a problem at first. And like, there were a couple of chiefs that were like, they would like kind of pry, like, hey, and they wouldn't really like it. Like, why are you getting all these days off? And it wasn't like I wasn't abusing it. Okay. Like, I never did weekends. It was just my appointments during the week.
Yeah.
So,
but did they not have an understanding of what you were going through either? It's
none of their fucking business. Because my kid, after the fact, he said one of the things that hurt him the most was my work.
Yeah.
So that was pretty tough to hear, because I was never home. So, I'm taking my son, to these appointments. I'm kind of getting a little bit of flack from my management, but there's really nothing they can do. And it wasn't everybody. It was just a couple of guys.
How does that work? Like, I know you don't have to, even if you call out sick, they don't have like the right to be like, what's going on? When you put in for something like that, that's substantial, to take a month off, do they have any requirement for like a doctor's note or anything like that?
So I was able to, through my son's physician, I was able to get the paperwork filled out, and I sent it into.
Okay. So then there
was nothing they could do. But
after that, it should be like, okay.
Yeah. So, and there were a few times where, like, I was, the day I'm off, I'm taking my son to an appointment. They call me in the morning. Hey, you're working today. And I'd be like, I'm not, I'm taking FMLA. And, I can't remember what the requirement was that, anyway. So just a handful of guys were giving me shit. And then, I eventually, after my wife, she was like, hey, you need to tell your crew. They don't know what the fuck's going on. Like, I'm sure they know that you're not, you're acting different. It's really hard to, get your mind right after that.
Yeah.
So, it was hard to tell my guys, I didn't tell all of them. I just told, mainly my supervisor, because, I just wanted to give I wanted to respect my family's privacy, especially my son's. So, they were like, hey man, whatever you need. But guys outside of my circle, they saw that, they're like, oh, you're just,
milking the system.
You're fucking us.
Yeah.
You're the Blue Falcon.
Uh-huh.
And they didn't know. And I wasn't going to tell them because they weren't really, they weren't close to me.
Yeah.
They didn't have the right to know. So I got to that point, and then, one day my wife's like, hey, I think you should retire early. Why don't we look into it? And I'm like, oh yeah, you got a job. Like, I'm not really happy where I'm at. So, yeah. So sure enough, like I was able to. And
did you have to have some type of like medical nexus to it based on what you guys are going through, or you already had enough time?
I had already had enough time.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
man, but think about like what you just said, how, and this is important for guys that are in any type of leadership position, because most agencies, you know, on the side of our cars, it says like integrity and leadership and honor.
Yeah.
And those things are written in the lunchroom. And one thing that they always say is what? Family first, family first. Every agency will tell you family first. And I'm not going to go into my stories because people have heard mine. But when I asked to put my family first, it was like, fuck you. And it made you realize something. It's like, oh, this is just all lip service. And when it comes time to take care of my family's not really a priority to you guys. And that is the fastest way to alienate someone.
That's exactly how I felt.
Yeah.
And there's another thing that, that's really, you know, it's prevalent in the fire services and probably law enforcement as well. Mental health.
Yeah.
You know, like I think now they're admitting, like, you know, hey, there's an elephant in the room, you know, but I don't think they necessarily have the right, we're not getting the right support.
Yeah. Well, bro, that elephant in the room is going to be front and center everywhere before too long. You know, the wars really opened the window to that, because, I mean, fuck, bro, I got home from Afghanistan and I was out of the military like 10 days later. Now, in full transparency, I didn't even fire a fucking round that deployment, right? You know what I mean? Like, luckily, that was a deployment for me that was a very, very, it was actually a fun and peaceful deployment. But that didn't change the military protocol. There's other guys that were on Roberts Ridge and Anaconda getting their helicopters shot down, watching their buddies die. Same thing. You get home and you're out of the military 2 weeks later. Hey, thanks for playing. Bye. And in the military's defense, you don't know what you don't know, right? Like, we had been at peacetime for so long that I don't think they understood the traumas. And bro, once they started looking into the psychology of soldiers, everybody is carrying fucking baggage home.
Yeah.
And then you realize, like, oh wait, first responders, their battlefield just happens to be in our neighborhoods.
Yeah.
But dude, you're going to those calls, you're watching people get burned alive. Like, and that's why I asked you, you know, and you feel like you've compartmentalized them pretty well. And maybe you have, and maybe one day you'll have to go through some type of healing, right? Yeah. But you said, I saw something fairly catastrophic every shift. And it's like, or not every shift, every tour.
Every tour. Yeah.
So,
average.
Yeah, average, right? And bro, I'm not here like taking notes to be like, well, what about the, you know, like, if it's anything like war, there's times in war where I didn't fire around for 6 months. Then there's also months where I got shot at every single day. And so it's like, and then there's everything in between, right? And so like, it's not about a dick measuring contest. It's just an understanding that, like, man, the career was hard on you.
Oh yeah.
And whether you compartmentalized it well during the time or not, man, like, as human beings, like, I feel like we are supposed to be able to balance love and peace and excitement and friendship and camaraderie and like the things that build us up. We need to balance that with the death and the destruction and the chaos and all the stuff that fucking tears us down as men. And the military and the first responder community does not balance that very well.
No, but they're trying.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They've pulled back the curtain and people are starting to see what all this is now, I feel like.
Within the last year that I was at work, I saw a drastic change, and they're trying. Like, for example, like when this happened, like, I started seeing a counselor. Like I was like, you know, my wife's like, hey, you need to go see somebody. You need to talk to somebody.
Did you find that beneficial?
Yes, 100%.
Did you have buy-in and feel comfortable with the first counselor you found?
Absolutely. I had to.
That's great.
I had a Minda who's awesome. I enjoyed going to her, but she moved out of state, and then I went and saw Dina. She's amazing.
Dude, that's really cool, man. Because one thing that I hear from people often, because I'm an advocate for counseling, and when I was younger, I was like, counseling's for pussies.
That's good that you are.
You
a lot of people aren't.
Well,
and they're hesitant.
Well, and this is why every time this comes up, and I don't go to counseling anymore. I haven't been to counseling in a long time.
I don't go either.
But I did go for a period of time. And what I found was like, when you get to sit down with someone that is not connected to you in any real capacity, like, bro, telling your coworkers, what if your coworker thinks you're weak? Man, that's scary.
Oh yeah.
What if your wife thinks you're weak? What if your best friend who thinks like, man, Danny's always been this solid motherfucker, and now he's crying to me now? And the truth is, we're telling ourselves that that's the story that they might feel. The truth is probably those people would love for you to be vulnerable with them, right?
Oh, yeah.
But as young, tough, wild animals, we tell the story that I can't show weakness to my community. I'm the protector. I'm the alpha male. Like all these 100%. Things, right? And then when you sit in a room, and for me, it was with a woman. My friend Greg Lappin has a male counselor that he loves, right? Nice. So, but for me, I felt like the feminine energy gave me more of a place where I could just relax.
Same here.
Right?
Same here.
Who is this woman, right? And bro, my first session, it was dictated to me by the VA. They're like, hey, if you want, based on all of the warfare you've been subjected to, in order to move forward with the process, you have to attend some counseling sessions with this woman who specializes in special operations combat veterans. And I remember thinking, like, a fucking woman that specializes in spec ops.
Yeah.
What do you fucking know about spec ops? The answer is nothing, bitch. Right? That's that. But that was just my defense mechanism because I didn't want to open up to this woman, and I didn't understand that at the time. And bro,
felt the same way.
I walk in there. There's a fucking box of Kleenexes on her fucking little coffee table. I remember just thinking, this is fucking stupid, bro. That woman had me crying within 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I feel it right now. I feel it right now, dude, saying that because I'm reliving that moment. And I remember thinking, like, what the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? Like, dude, I hadn't cried in like 15 years or something. And I cried in front of some woman that I don't know. You know why I cried in front of a woman that I don't know? Because she didn't have any expectations on who I was as a man. Like, if I leave there and that woman thinks I'm weak, I don't care.
Yeah.
You know? And she was very good about how she articulated it. And I've talked about this on the show a lot. She's like, Greg, I want you to understand something. Like, this is a professional relationship. We're not friends. If we pass each other in the grocery store, don't stop and talk to me. Don't introduce your wife to me. Like, that's not who we are.
Yeah.
We're here to help you heal. And bro, it kind of set me free.
Yeah.
And bro, I went to her probably 25 times. And then the conclusion that I came to is, oh, shocking that an outside perspective could be beneficial. Like, how arrogant are we to tell ourselves that an outside perspective is not beneficial?
I think we're comes from our culture, man.
Comes from our culture. And that's exactly right.
Before I went to my counselor, I was very hesitant. I didn't want to go. I was like, fuck this, you know? And then, you know, I was like, might as well try it. And same thing, man. I was crying.
What about your counseling sessions shifted that perspective for you?
They cared. They, you know, it helped, you know, just telling my story and, you know, what I'm experiencing and, you know, how I'm coping. And they sort of pointed me in the right direction. And, you know, it was really, it felt good just to purge all that stuff. You know, like I have all this shit. I can only tell my wife. And it's like, you know, some of the shit I don't want to tell her. Not that I'm like, you know, I don't hide anything from my wife, but it's like, I want her to, you know, look at me like I'm a, you know, alpha male, you know?
Bro, I'll tell you what, man, that's and I'm putting this together just as we're talking now, because you want to know one of the most powerful aspects of counseling is, man, someone's listening to me.
Yeah.
And you said it, I got to purge the things that I'm thinking about. And, bro, I purge to my wife now fucking nightly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I understand now that, like, man, this woman actually wants to listen. And I just protected her from that because I was afraid of how I would look. Right. Now there's still a balance, right? We can't just be fucking sobbing fucking every single day. Like, I still think you have to be the beacon of strength for your family, and you have to let them know and understand and see that.
100%.
But opening up to your woman with vulnerability, she'll actually think you're stronger. Yeah. That's at least in my experience now. And through counseling, that helped me communicate better with her. And now whether Jenny wants it or not, she's my counselor.
Well, like in my situation, my wife, like I can tell her, like, I think, you know what? I think the thing that helps me getting over these calls is being able to bounce them off my wife, you know, cause she was a paramedic, or she still is.
So is she part of an agency, like running calls, or is she, okay.
She's an administrator.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
But she understands, she walked the walk and understands that life.
Yeah. She used to work private, and then she flew for the sheriff's department as a medic. So she's
cool, bro. That has to be, again, like an emotional roller coaster, because you're going to like catastrophic car wrecks and shit like that. But that's an interesting, my buddy, one of my best friends is, he's a physician, but he does that sometimes.
Oh, okay.
With some of the agents, some of the hospitals that he worked for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Same with the sheriff's department. They have physicians like, there's quite a few, and they're like solid guys.
Uh-huh. Well, bro, I think if you're a doctor, or in your case with your wife, an EMT, and you say, hey, I want to be on the helicopters that are responding, that puts you at the upper echelons of the profession.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I didn't want anything to do with a helicopter.
Bro, you know what's funny is, like, I mean, I actually went, after I left the Ranger Regiment, I went to flight school.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to fly, bro. That was like, I'm going to fly for the 160th. Like, that would
be cool.
You know? And now I don't even like flying to California. I'm like, God, dude, there's fucking turbulence. This plane is shaking. My palms are sweating. I'm like, why are my palms sweating? Mm-hmm. I don't feel afraid right now, but I think my body feels afraid, even though my mind doesn't.
Yeah. When I fly with my wife, she gets so pissed because I'm so nervous, and she'll grab my hand. She's like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, what the hell's going on?
And she's like, I'm really getting tired of traveling with you. And then this time I'm flying up here by myself.
Yeah. Bro, it's crazy because, like, dude, when I was a young Ranger flying around in Blackhawks, that was my favorite aspect of being a Ranger. That's why afterwards I was like, I should become a pilot next, because, dude, fucking flying around in those Blackhawks, and 47s too, man, radical.
Yeah. And
they do what's called nap of the earth. So, like, you're flying with the terrain to keep as low of a signature as possible, right? So you're like, your fucking feet are hanging out the side of this helicopter at what feels like treetop level almost. And it's just fucking rad, dude. And like, I used to love that stuff. And now it's like, get me on the ground as soon as possible. Oh man. So, I mean, is that, you said you're not going to counseling anymore. You think through that process, you learn the tools and an understanding of yourself to kind of lead yourself now? Yes.
I was getting to a point where, there's really nothing to talk about. Not that like my life is so, badass and nothing's going on. The struggle's real. Everybody's got their struggles, but,
bro, my counselor said the same thing. She's like, Greg, don't come back anymore.
Same. Yeah. My
I was like, but we're, even though you say we're not friends, I kind of like hanging out with you. She's like, sorry.
My counselor said the same. She's like, hey, I think you're doing really good. Just if you want to come in, make an appointment, but I think you're doing okay. And so I can't remember the last time I talked to her, maybe a year and a half ago.
Okay.
And then, the thing that's like kind of crappy is at the time I needed counseling, I didn't even know that I can get free counseling through my department. It's not really, I wouldn't say it's not really advertised, at least when I was there.
Yeah.
And I didn't know any other guy that was going through counseling. And, I wasn't, if a guy asked me, hey, are you going to see a counselor? Fuck yeah. I don't have a problem saying I go see a counselor, but there's a lot of guys that would like look down on you.
Of course.
You're less of a man.
Yeah. And that's that stigma that we were talking about.
And I think that's why they don't really promote it, but now they're getting better. Like, they've acknowledged that the demands of work are impacting our mental health, and they're trying to take steps. It's way better than, how when I first started. But yeah, like I didn't even know there was free counseling, and maybe there's still guys out there that don't know it. But even if it's not free, there's other avenues. Like most of them have, benefits, and you can get that through your health insurance.
Yeah. So, and guys, look into your benefits and take advantage of them. When I first got hired as a deputy coming out of the Ranger Regiment, I was like, dude, if you sick call, you take a day of sick leave, it's because you're a fucking pussy, right? and bro, in Ranger Regiment, there's no such thing as sick leave. Mm-hmm. There is no such, you can't, it's funny because the culture is there's no such thing as calling in sick. It doesn't exist. Yeah. If you're sick, you're still going to be at formation, and then you're going to talk to our medic, and they're going to assess what happens next. There is no calling in sick. And so I carried that, and then I'm like, oh, people are calling in sick? Like, what are we talking about here? And again, just like everything, it's a balance, right? Yeah. And if you have sick time saved up and you fucking need a day to take care of yourself, go take care of yourself, and don't feel bad about that.
Oh yeah. There's a difference between like taking a mental health day or going to the river,
Yeah. That's exactly right, dude. I'll say this though, because what I have started to find, another reason why I don't think I need any type of counseling anymore is because I have all of my counselors here at the gym. And yes. What did you say about what one of the most powerful aspects of going through counseling was finding someone to listen?
Yeah.
And if you guys invest in relationships outside of the profession.
Yes.
Right? Outside of the profession. When you're a cop, you hang out with cops and you do cop shit. And even though you get together on Saturday night and bring a case of beer and watch the UFC fights, you know what they're talking about? You know what fucking Chief said to me last week? And you're doing and talking about cop shit again. And this is why jiu-jitsu has become so powerful for me. You're immersed around other people. And it's funny because me and Toby, my partner who owns the property out here in Granite Falls, we're going to be intentional about both within our own community of people, like, hey, once every week, 2, 3, whatever it is, let's go build a fire and just sit around it as men. Or sometimes we bring our women too, right?
Yeah.
But leave your phone in the fucking car and let's talk to each other. Like, bro, what we're doing right now, this is one of my favorite aspects of the podcast.
Same.
When's the last time you just sat down with a dude and talked for 2 hours?
Ah, shit.
You know what I'm saying? We don't do this anymore. No. But this was a big part of who we were our entire existence. You'd go do your hunts or your raids or your fucking walking across the Arctic tundra, and then you build your campfires and you sit around with your people and you talk to each other. This is what counseling is.
Yeah.
And if you don't have an avenue to be able to find a group of people that you can experience that with, maybe a counselor is a good option. But at the end of the day, it's human connection that helps us move through our traumas.
Yes. And I'll say that, I got to a point where I hated the fire service. I didn't have the big lifted truck. I didn't have a red truck. I didn't have a fire sticker. I didn't wear fire.
Do you have a big mustache?
A dick broom. I didn't. Okay. But there were times where I had one. But for the most part, I hated when people were like, "Hey man, you look like a fucking fireman."
And you're like,
"Yeah, no. God damn it."
Yeah.
And that it sucks. Like it sucks to shit on somebody's passion, because like there's a lot of guys out there that love what they do. They're working at their dream department. Their department's taking care of them. But like I was so callous that like when I retired, I was like, oh, thank God.
Did your life change dramatically as soon as retirement happened?
Yeah,
bro. I talk about it with people all the time. And bro, my last department was the port, and I'm always transparent as far as police work goes. Man, the last couple of years was pretty much a cakewalk. It was not a high stress department when it comes to the type of calls we're taking, right?
Uh-huh.
And even that, man, when I walked away from that, it was like, oh, this is what not being a cop feels like. you don't know what you don't know because you got to get up and go to work. That's what you do, right?
Yeah.
And so talk to me about that experience then. Like, did your family notice it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So before I retired, I went on injury. I ended up having knee surgery, and it gave me time to like, I don't know, just get in the right headspace. Like, oh, hey man, you're leaving the department. And at first I was like, holy shit, man, I'm leaving a job that pays very well, but the benefits of the job didn't outweigh like me being home with my family.
Yeah.
So I knew that I was like, I could have been stubborn and I could have freaking stayed, and I'd probably be divorced, and I would never see my kids, and I don't want that. You
would have been loyal to your brothers.
Well, oh man, ugh. They're brothers. Like, there are some brothers out there, but
of course
like,
there is.
Yeah. But as a whole, like, I don't know, man. It's just different. Before I retired, I went to this class called Retire Well. A guy that works for my department, he called me up. He's like, hey man, I heard you're kind of retiring. I had heard through the grapevine, because I didn't really announce it. I told a handful of guys, and
you scheduled a surgery right before it. What a shitbird.
I know, dude. I was leaving, and my knee was pretty jacked up, and I needed to get it fixed.
Bro, in case you didn't pick up on it, that's sarcasm.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you, we're giving a lot of the younger guys good nuggets, right? Don't wait till you get out to address your injuries or your issues.
Yes.
Because, again, as a Ranger, it's like, I would never have said like, oh, hey, like fucking this is happening or that's happening. The one thing that I went to our battalion PA for, I remember, I think we did like an obstacle course or something, like some gnarly PT session, and I felt like a hernia. Like there was a little bulge, and there was some pain. And I remember his name was Doc Neatman, and I said, hey, man, what's up with this? And he goes, yeah, it looks like maybe a little tear or something, but it's not a full hernia. We don't need to worry about that. Bro, if I had that documented, I would have been like, I literally didn't get the surgery till last year.
Yeah, that's right. You did.
You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
And so it's like, and I didn't even connect those dots because it had been so long. Like when this hernia finally tore through, I had been carrying it partially for so long that I completely had forgot about that.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's like, if you document shit like that with your department, that doesn't mean you're a shitbag or you're trying to get over or you're weak. It's like, hey, you hurt yourself doing the job, and they're going to take care of you when you're older. Now, and luckily for me, the VA did take care of it, right? But my whole point is, like, sometimes if you don't do the right thing at the time, you fuck yourself later down the road.
Oh, yeah.
And so, yeah, you took care of the knee while you were in. Good for you, bro.
Yeah. So I'm taking this Retire Well class. It was provided by a department, different agency. And I think there was another guy that worked for my department that was there, about, I don't know, maybe 20, 25 of us. I'd say 90% of the class was guys from the hosting agency. And they are paid well. They're actually, like, I would put this agency on the forefront of mental health. Like, they are acknowledging it, and they are freaking powering. They're doing the right thing. Like, they have a guy that they took off the floor, and he is like, I'll probably fuck up his title, but he's basically like a mental health officer. Like, he's in charge of making sure guys are getting help, checking on the morale.
And their agency's called Retire Well, or that's the class?
That's the class. Okay. I don't want to drop their agency.
Damn, you might want people that need help from them, bro.
Oh, okay. So they have they're in their district. They have a large international airport. It's in the Inland Empire.
People fucking become investigators, huh? Like, they don't have any power over you anymore.
I know. It's Ontario. So
okay.
The guys that were in the class from Ontario, man, I could see the brotherhood.
Yeah.
And I looked at them, and some of them, you could tell that they were having a hard time retiring. Like, they wanted to stay on the job because being a fireman was who they were.
Yeah.
Like me, I was so calloused and jaded from that. Like,
yeah, you were ready for the next phase of life.
I was in this class and I was like, holy shit, I think I'm doing okay. Like, I'm not worried about like hanging up my uniform. I don't even know where the fuck it is. You know,
I my whole time I called it the Halloween costume.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't me.
Yeah.
It never was me. You know?
I didn't want to be that person either.
Well, the guys that do have that be their identity. I'm not going to say don't have it be your identity while you're doing it, because that's if that's what empowers you and you love what you're doing, you love who you're with and stuff. Like, I love being a ranger. Like that was certainly my identity, right? I think where people start to have problems is when it's time to find a new identity. You know, and like you said, you didn't struggle because you were ready to leave that and move on to the next phase.
And at the time, I didn't know where I was going to go. I thought I was going to, just have my own business. I was going to do heavy equipment, and, so I went in a different direction, and it worked out so far, But
for the guys that like aren't ready to move on to something new, retirement is basically like soul searching. Who am I?
Yeah.
And I see that with a lot of soldiers, man. A lot of soldiers feel like who I was like their Super Bowl. So anything that I'm going to do after this is kind of like, ugh.
And you brought up a good point, is to have, like, what'd you say when you got around a bunch of officers, they're going to talk about work or whatever.
Yeah,
Same thing with firemen.
Yep. Get outside of that.
So I would say I have a couple of firemen that are my friends, but most of them aren't, like, don't even, not in the business. Like a good friend of mine, he's a nurse practitioner. I met him in jiu-jitsu. He's awesome.
See, bro, jiu-jitsu. You guys hear that?
Man. I can't wait to train again, but I gotta give it some time. So, but taking this class, I thought I was prepared, and so far it's been pretty good. I'm kind of like taking care of my kids a lot, and the household. It's been nice.
Yeah. Well, bro, I think that's it's easy to lose sight on what's the most important aspect of your life. And a lot of us prioritize the career ahead of everything. And we used to say in the Marshal Service, like, when you turn 57, you get mandatory fired.
That's right.
That's what happens. You get fired.
Not with the fire service.
But it's like, you think like, oh, I'm this, oh, I'm that. And it's like, one day you're not going to be that. And the only thing you're going to have left is the friendships that you invested in, the relationships you invested in, and your family. Yep. And when that day comes, are you ready to face what those relationships look like? And if the answer is no, probably start investing in them sooner than later, because like, fuck, man, I mean, we're in our mid 40s now. Like, where did it fucking go?
Yeah.
The shit is going to catch up sooner than later. And if you don't take the time to nurture your family, I mean, you already said it, like half the dudes were divorced, half the dudes, and bro, in the world of law enforcement, half the dudes are alcoholics too. And
same with the fire service.
And that's not because they love their life and they love their brotherhood. It's because they're in a fucking bad way.
Yeah.
Like, no, you don't find yourself becoming an alcoholic because everything's good, man.
Yeah.
And it's like, don't misconstrue that as like, oh, I get together with the guys every night and we go tie one on because we're a brotherhood. No, you're out tying one on because your real life is fucking dark.
Trying to escape.
And so like, but it's easy to also sit here in our 40s that we walked through a lot of this and we're on the other side of it. Now we have a clear picture of what that is. And so I do think it's necessary to talk about, but fuck, man, maybe at the end of the day, people just have to walk through it too, to a certain extent, to really understand what that whole cycle entails, Fuck, there's one more thing I wanted to bring up. Now it just slipped my mind.
I want to bring up a couple of things.
Bring it up, bro. Yeah, because we're already coming up on 2 hours. I like to keep the show about 2 hours.
So I want to talk about a couple of cool things that I did while I was with the department. So one of them involves Scientology, and then the other one involves the Secret Service.
Okay.
So I guess I'll start with the Scientology. So one of the districts I was working in had this compound up in the mountains, this Scientology place. I had no idea it existed.
Wait, the department had?
No, it's in the district.
Oh, okay. So got it.
So it
falls under your jurisdiction.
Yeah, so I was at work, and my boss at the time, he's like, "Hey, we're gonna go tour this compound, this Scientology compound." I was like, "Holy shit, what? It's up here?" And he's like, "Yeah, the thing you drive by." And I was like, "Oh wow, okay." I'd never been there. So
why were you guys touring it?
We try and get out,
like an assessment,
pre-plan. You know,
got
like
it. If this were to ever have a fire here, how would we address it?
Yeah, they got some crazy shit there.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, so we get
Was
there.
John Travolta there?
No, I didn't see
Isn't
him.
he a fucking radical Scientologist?
I think so.
If he's not, my bad. Actually,
no,
I
think
care.
he is.
Fuck you.
Yeah, no, he's a weird dude anyway, from what I've heard, allegedly. So we get there, and there's this. I only see a couple of people through the whole tour or pre-plan, and we start off. We park. This lady comes through the gate. She meets us, and I'm looking at the gate, and like the spiky bars are pointed towards the inside, not the out. Okay.
Yeah. Like
it's kind of weird.
Yeah. What's going on here?
Yeah. So,
No, think about that. What the fuck's going on here? Right?
Well, so we're walking, she's, just kind of shows us around. We end up going in this bunker, and they have this bunker, and it's basically like they keep, a record of their religion. And their thing is they want to protect it so it never dies. So like we go in this bunker, and there's a security guard in there. There's always somebody in there.
Was he a stud or some 75-year-old pussy?
No, far from it.
Okay. All right. I'm just seeing what they're investing.
Some old dude.
I'm seeing what they're investing in their security.
Yeah. No, we didn't see anybody. I only saw a couple of people while I was there. Everybody's all working.
Didn't they? I mean, I don't know anything about Scientology, so for me to even speak on it, I'm kind of full of shit. But I guess, isn't it relatively new?
Yeah.
Like how could... Trying to figure out how you can just, because I come up with ideas all the time, but I've never came up with a religion.
While we were on this tour, we went into like a couple of their buildings. Again, there's not anybody in there, and like there were these like softballs, like, hey, have you thought about Scientology? Like, this is, everybody loves it here. Like they work 18-hour days, and we have to tell people to stop working. And I'm like, 18 hours? Shit. That's a long time.
Yeah, I can't wait to join your fucking team.
Yeah. So we go in the bunker, check it out. And then Ron Hubbard's, I think it's Ron Hubbard, his old RV, it was parked up there. So we got to see that, and that was pretty much it. But it was just kind of weird to see their compound. And I had no idea that it existed.
Well, bro, it doesn't surprise me at all that they were actively trying to recruit you, because my wife, literally when she was like 17 or 18, she was a kid still. It was at some type of like fucking career fair, some bullshit, right? And I don't remember how they got her contact info. Bro, they write us handwritten letters to this day.
Yeah. I'm probably going to get mail now.
Bro, she's moved like 6 fucking times. We still get handwritten letters to our house to this day about considering joining Scientology.
Yeah, sell your shit and sign up.
And it's like, why the fuck do you guys want to recruit people so hard? Like, I don't know. It's bizarre, dude.
Yeah.
And now they're probably going to put a fucking hit out on me or something. But,
same here.
But fucking bring it. Yeah, your 75-year-old security guard, bring it, bro.
Oh, dude. Yeah.
Hey, come here. We work 18-hour days and everybody loves it.
Yeah.
Fucking sign me up, dude. You did tell me your CIA story, then we're going to wrap it up.
Secret Service.
Secret Service.
Nothing. So, a while ago, I was on the,
like the fucking fat girl that couldn't holster her weapon a couple months ago.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't see her, but I saw,
you saw something similar?
Yeah. So, I used to be, I got trained to teach TCCC. I was I was a part of the escalated threat cadre for the department. So
Which is reacting to trauma.
Yeah. We're going out teaching other agencies, teaching her, stop the bleed, all that stuff. So I get a text. We had a group text, and our leader, the guy that's in charge of us, he's like, hey, I got this detail. Let me know if you guys are interested. And I can't tell you the base or the specifics. So I was like, hey, I got nothing to do. So he's like, hey, I need your social. And I was like, okay. So I gave it to him. He's like, okay, on this date, show up here and we'll go from there. And I was like, okay. So we show up and he's like, hey, the president's coming into town. I think it was in January. It was either a month or two after the IRC terrorist attack in San Bernardino. So he was going to land.
What year was that?
2015, I believe. 2015. Yeah. It was either 2015 or 2014.
Okay.
So his plan is
So was it Bush or Obama?
It was Obama.
Okay.
Yeah. So he was going to land at Norton, and basically, like, there's this high school in San Bernardino that he was going to meet the families and talk to them, the affected families. So we were just basically, like, they asked us and we were going to show up. So I was paired up with another engineer. We took an ambulance to this high school, and, there's other parts of our team. They're at the airport, they're at the, they're on the tarmac, or they're at the terminal, whatever. So we were at the high school, and the first Secret Service guy I met, I was like, holy shit, this guy is a killer. Like, he knew my name, he's like, hey man, how's it going, Danny? And I was like, holy shit. And he was fit, like, just the way he carried himself. I was like, man, that's not
fucking stud.
That's not the guy to fuck with.
Uh-huh.
Everybody else from there, it was like, really? Like, I just didn't see it.
Bro, welcome to the time. Welcome to the federal government.
Oh, dude.
The federal government is the biggest facade that you've ever seen in your entire fucking life, dude.
Yeah.
FBI, fucking Marshal Service, ATF, like, you got your killers, like you saw. Yeah. They had their killer, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then they had a bunch of fucking just paperweights.
Yeah, there were a lot. But so we basically, like, we showed up to the high school before he showed up. We're in this cafeteria. Me and my partner, we grabbed the medical bags and shit, and it was basically like, hey, if something happens, you're there or whatever. They didn't go through our bags. Didn't search me, nothing.
Really?
Yeah, but they did search our ambulance that was parked way out in the parking lot, which I thought that was weird. So, like,
bro, that's not called weird. It's just incompetence. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, hey, we got these protocols. Let's go ahead and, like, and bro, to tell you the truth, it's also kind of offensive. And I get, on one hand, like, well, we got to protect the president at all costs. So I don't know who the fuck Danny is, so I'm going to go through your shit, right? Yeah. But then it's like, hey, motherfucker, do you believe that I will stop a bleed if he gets shot? Because if you believe I'm here to do that, why the fuck do you think I'm bringing a fucking whatever in to get, like, I don't know. When I met Bush, I was a Ranger, and they put us through all of this shit too.
Well, I was expecting some sort of, like, security check. I want to say they checked our IDs maybe, but they didn't pat me down. They didn't go through any of my bags. And I, like, this guy's the most important dude in the world for the most part.
Allegedly.
Yeah. So we're basically in there for, hours just hanging out. There's some SWAT guys. There's some school teachers. Everybody's thinking, oh, we're going to get to meet him and see him. Dude, everybody's looking through this door. There's like a 6x12 piece of glass that you can look through, and you can kind of see where he came in and out.
You're not even in the room.
Nope.
You're in an adjoining room.
Yeah, we're in a different area.
I see.
So we saw Michelle when she was leaving. We saw her come
when
out.
he was leaving. I can't let that one slide.
Yeah, no. I'm glad you said it. Then Obama came out. But the coolest thing was seeing the full bird captain, the freaking guy carrying the football, coming out of the building, because he was with Obama. He's got, like, the codes or whatever, the nuclear codes. So I thought, seeing him, I was like, whoa, that's so cool. But that was pretty much it. I mean,
didn't even come in and say what's up to you
no,
guys.
everybody was thinking that he was going to come say hi and shit. The only person we really met was his physician at the time, I think. And he was kind of a weird dude. So,
bro, all those motherfuckers, like, and you said you enjoy my episodes where I'm crazy Anderson. So
oh yeah. Oh dude, it's
maybe
awesome.
spend the last 10 minutes just fucking going
right.
on a rant. But, I mean, bro, I worked security details for the Department of State for a long time.
Oh shit.
And this was all overseas stuff, right?
Okay.
But a lot of the guys kind of intermix back and forth. So
was that triple canopy?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So it was a contracted position.
I didn't know. Okay.
But the contract that Triple Canopy had was a DOS contract, right?
Oh, okay.
So you start to meet people and talk to people and hear stories. And there's some guys that worked stateside gigs with State Department. And bro, every single person that ever worked with Hillary Clinton, you'll be shocked to hear this, treats her own security detail like absolute fucking garbage.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And it's like, hey, you dumb bitch. Like, we're literally the people that are expected to fucking protect you from being killed.
Yeah.
And you want to treat me like shit? Well, now I'm here for a paycheck. You want to talk about being somewhere for a paycheck? Here's another pro tip. If you're a fancy fucking person or you're a rich person and you have a security detail, trust me when I tell you, treat those people with respect. Because we had protectees that I would have died for.
Yeah.
We also had protectees at times where I'm here for a paycheck. You don't want your security detail to simply be there for a paycheck, you know? And the thing is, bro, it's not hard. It doesn't take any of your time or any of your energy to be kind to people.
Doesn't cost you anything.
Doesn't cost you anything. And she would treat all of her security detail not only like fucking, oh, go pick up my bags and go and bring them to fucking, like ordering them around like they're slaves.
Yeah.
I've even heard stories where if you say hello or good morning to her,
she doesn't want to talk to you.
She'll be like, don't talk to me.
Yeah.
My security detail does not talk to me. And it's like, you should be fucking strung up for that, dude. Like, I don't, and dude, and I also know people that have met Trump. Like, when my buddy fucking Joe Kent's wife was killed, Trump met him at Dover, Delaware to receive the body, dude. And Joe told me, he's like, dude, Trump knew so much about Shannon.
Wow.
He did his homework. So when he came up and shook my hand, he could make talk about celebrating Shannon, right?
Genuine guy.
That's what I'm saying, dude. And so everyone wants to talk shit on him. It's like, no, man, I have been in the circles with the government for long enough to know, like, bro, the Obamas and the Clintons, they treat people like dog. If you're a fucking stupid firefighter or a stupid EMT, I'm not going to come say hi to you. Put yourself in that back room and fuck you, right? And I guarantee you, if that was President Trump, he would have stopped by that room and thanked you guys for what you did. Mm-hmm. And that's just the truth. If people don't want to believe it, then so be it. But I've seen it over and over and over. I even knew a guy, when I went through the warrant officer course. So here's an interesting thing about the Army is all warrant officers go through the same course, other than the 18 series, I believe, because we didn't have any SF warrants. But all the other warrants, aviation warrants and all the other ones, go through the same course. And there was a dude becoming a warrant who was a cook. And bro, he was attached to Hillary Clinton in some capacity for a long time. And he said she treated him like dog shit. And it's like, you were her cook.
Yeah.
Like, fuck, have you not watched Game of Thrones? Like, come on, dude. Yeah. But it just goes down to, I mean, fuck, we could do another whole show on it. It's a leadership failure. Yeah. Man, like, your people underneath you, like, show them dignity, show them respect, show them love, show them care, and they will bleed for you. But these people, they have such a backwards way of how they interact with people that they think being a leader is being a fucking 10th century fucking king where you get to just tell people what to do and everybody worships you. And it's like, fucking those days.
Fuck the peasants or
whatever.
Well,
that's exactly
royalty.
Right. We're the peasants, bro. Yeah. You know, it's a crazy fucking time that we've arrived in, but that's what we are to these people. And that's why it's fucking changing. That's why we saw what we saw 2 months ago. Yep. That's why, because bro, we ain't fucking peasants.
No. Did you see California got redder?
That's what I'm saying, dude.
There's still hope.
Like, bro, like, I hope so. I hope there's hope for you, man. All Although I heard fucking, and I don't know if this is true or not because I saw it on Instagram, but that Kamala Harris is considering the governor of California. Have you seen or heard anything about that?
I think I have.
God, dude.
I don't think she can get elected. Man. I think her political career is dead.
Of course it's dead, dude.
Yeah.
She went into debt on a presidential campaign.
Dude. Yeah.
Like, dude, you want to be the leader of the country and you can't even manage the finances of a campaign?
And you still lost.
And Trump said he'll cover the loss. Did you see that?
Oh, no.
I don't know if he's really going to do it or if he's just talking shit.
Okay. Yeah, but he's pretty sly like that.
Bro, at the end of the day, all of these people that are on this fucking radical agenda, they're not willing to do what you just did. Just sit down and talk for 2 hours. Yeah. Just sit down and talk for 2 hours.
Have a conversation's lost these days.
And so when they're not willing to do that, it lets you know that they're part of a regime. They're part of something that is built on a foundation of lies.
Yeah. And
so like you can't be a real person when everything that you're built on is a bed of lies. And that's who they are, bro. That's why they can't even come and say hi to you when you're fucking there to protect them.
No, we heard it. Like I didn't hear it from anybody that was around me, but my guys that were on my team, they were saying that the Secret Service was not happy about Obama. They were like, basically like, fuck this guy. Like this guy's they don't like him.
Well, it's time for these fucking agencies to just be like, you know what, dude? Fuck you. Like it's crazy how everybody just continues, like I said, the last week's episode with Chris Piota, high ranking special agent, FBI.
I think I've heard of it. Was he on
he just did Cleared Hot too, like a week or two ago.
Oh, that was awesome.
And he just
You got him?
Yeah. He flew out here this time and actually sat in the studio. And we had a much better episode because he's the only episode I did over Zoom. I hate Zoom episodes, man. But he talked about that, how like, dude, all of these people that are in these leadership positions are just like groveling and just doing what they're told. And it's like, ugh.
Yeah.
You're the fucking FBI. You don't have to kiss Hillary Clinton's ass. Fuck you.
Yeah.
But they all fall into that, like, I don't know. It's just fucking like chasing their career.
The next.
Yeah. And that's what happens, man. So there, I hope you're happy. You got me fired up for the last 10 minutes.
I'm sorry, man.
No, dude, we did 2 hours about life
awesome.
and about what you went through and some of the stories that you experienced. And I had fun, man. This makes me happy that you came out and did this.
Thanks for having me.
And then we wrapped it up with talking shit for a couple minutes.
Man, I feel better.
Talk therapy, bro. Yeah. So I appreciate you, man.
Thank you.